From sending them for an impromptu swim, to feeling the need to make them a little too personal. This group of WWE champions felt the need to do some very strange things to their titles, belts, gold, those things with Velcro. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 more strange things WWE champions did with the belt. Oh, and yes, we've been a bit cute with the parameters here just so we can present this as a bit of a sequel to the original. So here's the compromise. All of the people featured here have been champions in WWE at some point, even if it wasn't or isn't that specific strap involved. And if that isn't enough, well, number 10, Hulk Hogan buries it in another country. There was once a time where putting the WWE Championship on Hulk Hogan made all the sense in the world. 5 very specific times, in fact. Hogan's first 4 reigns and his earnestly sweet and thankfully short nostalgia run in 2002 all spoke to the frenzied popularity of wrestling's biggest star. His 1993 victory at WrestleMania 9 spoke only to Vince McMahon's panic. McMahon thought he'd found the magic again as the show of shows went off the air with the Hulkster squashing Yokozuna seconds after the sumo star had cheaply defeated Bret Hart. But the chairman confused it with a mere illusion akin to the double doink phenomenon earlier in the show. Over in Japan, where he thought he wouldn't be seen nor heard, Hogan called the belt a toy and a trinket during a New Japan Pro Wrestling press conference to leverage a future there instead. His arrogance-laden tour de force literally knew no bounds. But McMahon saw sense enough to make a clean break shortly afterwards. Number 9, The Rock throws it off a bridge. WWE used to be so great at making Backlash feel like anything but a rehash. Even after WrestleMania 15's end-of-the-world victory for Stone Cold Steve Austin, the hero didn't just want his belt back, he wanted his belt back. Turning an old Austin trick on its head in 1999, The Rock went one further than just hoying the Smoking Skull WWE Championship into the Detroit River. Just as the Rattlesnake had once done to his Intercontinental title, he knocked Stone Cold into the drink too. The dramatic scene played off a vintage moment from their original 1997 series that saw Austin hand the Intercontinental Championship over to the Great One, only to hold it hostage before lobbing it over the Belle Isle Bridge into the briny deep below. Spotting the opportunity for a cute callback when the pair were back waging war during a return to the city 2 years later, Rock's dangerous assault perfectly set the stage for their pay-per-view rematch, especially when he revealed that he still had possession of it 1 week later. What an a-hole! Number 8, Mr. Perfect smashes it with a hammer. Between 1988 and 1990, Mr. Perfect did everything but win the WWE Championship. Having executed his vast array of perfect sporting skills in some very fondly remembered vignettes, Perfect went on an unbeaten streak befitting of his name, and would later claim the Intercontinental Championship while becoming the crown jewel of the Heenan family. Before that though, he famously took out his rage on a belt he wasn't quite able to snare, smashing up the cherished WWE Championship following Hulk Hogan's Saturday night's main event clash with The Genius was an inspired way to try and get in the Hulkster's head, and developed a new life nearly a decade later when Vince McMahon presented Mankind with the Hardcore Championship. The urban legend was eventually debunked that the broken up winged eagle design patronizingly offered to Mrs. Foley's baby boy was not the carefully kept version Kurt Hennig battered with a hammer, but it was certainly nice to think of the diligence needed to keep such a thing in the first place. Number 7, The Fiend puts his face on it. Yes, they sold at $6,000 a pop. Yes, there was a certain disconnect between Bray Wyatt's clown-faced oddball holding the glistening Universal Championship belt. And yes, there was something ever so slightly disarming about The Fiend wearing his own face around his face. And finally, no, it still didn't really look like a title. How was this ever actually a thing? In the age of nuance-free debate and ultra-definitive hot takes, almost certainly mindful of the furore it would cause from those celebrating and castigating the thing, the organization capitalized on the controversy and parted some rich fuels with some clearly inconsequential cash. And that's why all of this happened, obviously, just in case you thought it was something foolish like, I don't know, law. Number 6, Chris Jericho has it stolen. When Chris Jericho first became a world champion in wrestling, he was made aware of the news via a joke. Infamously, it was an overheard Vince McMahon gag about the business going to crap that confirmed Y2J's impending win. Fitting then that his most recent and arguably most important reign atop an organization built to rival McMahon's monopoly triggered an iconic pro wrestling meme and a tale that sounded like a joke in the aftermath. Following his little bit of the bubbly celebrations after defeating Hangman Page at All Out 2019, Jericho JERICHO found that the physical belt had been stolen and put out a video from his hot tub requesting its return from the low-life scumbag who'd taken it. Alongside the Tallahassee police, the appeal worked. Local authorities recovered it from the side of the road and returned it to Le Champion in time for the maiden edition of Dynamite on TNT just a few weeks later. Number 5. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall's Belt Basketball. An infamously horrendous bit of belt abuse made darkly amusing due to the perpetrators. This game of basketball with WCW's television championship made a mockery of legacy and prestige in a company rapidly destroying both. The outsiders seemingly arrived at the pointlessness of the belt on the spot. When talking about defending his United States gold, Hall was asked about the other around his waist. After calling the piece of tin useless, he set up a 1v1 with Nash, who dunked it in the bin as listless interviewer Chavo Guerrero commentated on it as if he wasn't sick of his life too. It's too rooted in cynicism to be one of those charmingly self-effacing click tales, this one. Both were old enough to know better but rich enough to not care. And WCW was left to pick up the pieces, or in Jim Duggan's case, the belt itself from that same bin in the aftermath. Number 4. The Giant wears both belts. As lovingly noted and shared by @DeepCutsWCW, the company juggled 2 pairs of tag team title belts between 1998 and 1999, and while White's partner Scott Hall sported one of each for the crack, the Giant kept it slicker by arriving for this bout fronting both. It's the sort of thing WWE could and probably should do again, though relatively recent precedents suggest they won't. Braun Strowman easily battered the bar at WrestleMania 34, but had to pull Nicholas Cone from the crowd to be his partner from the night. The monster among men could probably do a better job pulling off 2 belts than he ever did the single universal strap in 2020, in whatever company he lands in next, if he even does. Wrestling's a bit weird right now, isn't it? Number 3. Wrestlers take them to the opposition. I'm bundling this into one entry because the 2 most prominent cases from the 1990s are so famous that they've been labored upon to the point of exhaustion, even if the moments still play out as dramatic decades later. When Ric Flair and Alundra Blaze took their top titles to the other side in 1991 and 1995 respectively, they were shots fired in wrestling wars. Such was the theoretical prestige of both straps. The subsequent carnage has convinced others to bring another company's gold to their current home. From Team 3D wearing all the belts in their career during a half-decent TNA run, and Rhino also bringing his original ECW championship to Impact Zone, to Austin Aries and Kenny Omega having runs as wrestling belt collectors. There's a certain tension to seeing things in wrestling that are where they should not be, which is perhaps why a famously affable chap got himself in an awful lot of bother when he inadvertently disgraced the gold. Number 2. Mick Foley throws it to the ground. It all came up, as it were, when Cactus Jack went to Extreme Championship Wrestling for an independent wrestling hardcore dream match with Sabu. An amicable talent trade turned a little less so when it became apparent just how suited to the surrounds Cactus was. Everything from his look to the style and energy of his matches, and indeed his character's propensity for danger, seemed to jive better with a grubby bingo hall in Philadelphia, rather than the glossy and ever-changing face of World Championship Wrestling. Feeling as though he disgraced himself against the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, death-defying maniac, he made the point that losing his pride there was worth more than any belt. The phlegm-soaked strap hit the deck, as did Foley's WCW prospects. For the duration of his ECW tenure, and especially after arriving in WWE by 1996, he didn't appear particularly devastated with his decision. Number 1. Naomi makes it glow. Naomi's 2017 SmackDown Women's Championship reigns may as well have not even happened based on how little they've been spoken of ever since. The former 2-time champion didn't get much of a look in after surprisingly dropping the gold to Natalya at SummerSlam that same year, and has repeatedly found her presence minimized ever since. Is it possible the company just didn't want to spend big on customizing the belt again? During a discussion about her LED-loaded prize on Talkin' Smack, Naomi noted that it had 7 lighting settings and she was looking for more. Typically, it's when the props look their cheapest that they cost the most. The chaotic end aesthetic was an acquired taste, but it was brilliantly in keeping with her character, entrance, and the rest of her awesome presentation. It's the sort of thing that's missed now more than ever too, especially against the tepid surroundings of the Thunderdome or grim, thinly obscured avarice of NXT's Capitol Wrestling Center. More LED belts, less LED fans once the world gets off its arse again, please. And that's our list. Know of any other strange things WWE champions did good with the belts? Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button. Also, be sure to head on over to whatculture.com and find some more incredible articles just like the one this video you're watching is based on. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you as always for clicking on this video, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon. Bye bye!